Indonesian soccer fans, well, hundreds of millions of them in the populous nation. They're reacting with anger, now lamenting the dramatic decision of FIFA to pull the highly anticipated Under-20 World Cup from the nation just weeks before Indonesia was due to host the tournament. It all stems, or at least the way we see it here, from protests against Israel's participation. Now, FIFA took the tough move after two influential local governors had advocated banning Israel from the competition. This, again, the world's most populous Muslim nation, which does not have diplomatic ties with Israel. Though many across the islands are now speaking out against the government's anti-Israel policies. It's drawing attention to it. And we're joined in the studio by Uri Levy, journalist and founder of Baba Go. Good to have you with us, Uri. Always
Thank you
love your sports coverage here, especially with your eye to the world. First of all, I can't even wrap my head around this, that FIFA's taking a stand, or at least as it appears from us, standing up to the 300 million people of Indonesia on behalf of little Israel. I mean, is that actually what's happening right now?
De facto, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what's happening. But things are a little bit more complicated, as expected in such a massive story.
Yeah.
Indonesia has a history with its relationship and vision regarding Israel, the Palestinians, and everything that is taking place here, although we are 3,000 kilometers far away from them. Back in 1958, already, the first president of Indonesia, Sukarno, has issued a policy for Indonesian athletes and sports delegation not to compete against Israel. Well, we know this policy from all over the Arab world. Right. Yeah. But for 53 years, so I would say since 1970 World qualification, when Indonesia was drawn to play against Israel and withdrew, they hadn't had the chance to use this policy until very not too long ago, when they get the right to host the Under-20 World Cup that was initially planned for 2021, but the COVID era postponed them to 2023. Same for the Euros, which Israel won the second place, got the ticket to the Under-20 World Cup, and this is how this crisis basically started. But for Israel, it's a very good sign, because you see that FIFA, in the end, when it comes to this national team, to our football association, do stand firmly by their statute not to mix politics and football. And this issue is completely a political issue, internal and external for Indonesia. In Indonesia, you have an election in 1 year. The current president, Widodo, is facing a very strong opposition, mainly supported by a group called the Islamic Alliance, a group of several Islamic groups functioning in Indonesia, where the power behind this protest, I must say, not a wide protest. I think the protests that are taking place here in Israel are even bigger than the protests that were in Indonesia, but they were in key locations, so they interrupted the life there. But the politicians from the opposition side made a lot of pressure on the current president not to drop the traditional line of Indonesia towards Israel. But fact is, I think the majority of Indonesian public, and I'm getting tons of messages on Twitter from Indonesian football fans and colleagues with football journalists saying, we are so sorry you are not coming. I think the majority of the Indonesian public has no massive problem with Israel. But and the government,
they love soccer.
Exactly, and the government,
they don't know much about Israel. No, they don't have like preconceived notions mostly in Indonesia about Israel. Does this change the landscape of sort of anti-Israel bias in the sports world? Does this serve as a sort of a new benchmark for?
I think the World Cup in Qatar already changed a little bit the atmosphere around it. Israeli media, exactly, Israeli fans were there. But in Indonesia, we heard in the past couple of years that there were behind-the-scenes effort to make them a new member of the Abraham Accords. So the government has interest in relations with Israel to some extent. The public and the political system there is not ready yet, but I think it's a good sign. Eventually, the way to solve these kind of things are, first of all, an encounter. So this is the first encounter. There will be
an issue to shake up the status quo, at least. Uri Levy, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.